judge me. It's an early Saturday. Okay. Dumelang bagaetsho. Welcome to the live edition of Sechaba. Are you listening? We've done this a few times before. We gate cry. Okay, not a few times. I take that back. A couple of weeks or a few weeks ago, we gate crashed the feminist movement's discussion in the, what park is it? What's the name of the park? I forgot. It's opposite the Methodist Church, but we sat down with a bunch of women and asked them about episodes of Sechaba, and then we said to ourselves, you know, we really need to do this some more. We really need to figure out how people feel about women's issues, like the things that can affect you and that can the party. In that sense, I have a lovely group of women with me and my gentle brother in the back who's sort of pretending he's not here. But we're going to discuss politics, women in politics. How do we feel about the current situation? How do we feel like it's time to navigate what's going on? And how do we get more women there in the parliament? Because we don't even have like 10. And I'm not sure we've ever had at least 10. And that's not a huge percentage. 10 would be about 6% of the entire parliament itself, but it would be better than 1%, 2% that we currently have. So my first question, and I don't know who wants to take this one, but how did you feel on voting day when you woke up, went to the ballots, stood in line, and then finally made your vote and came out? How was that experience for you this time around? Who wants to lead? I don't wanna, guys, I don't wanna. Okay, thank you. It feels like bullying if I just
It's alright. Um, is it fine? Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. My name is Samantha. Yeah. Nice to meet you too. And I felt really excited about voting. This was actually my second time voting. Yeah, again at the same center. So my friends and I were already excited. You know, we had a little checklist of things. You know, because you know sometimes there's not always enough chairs and all. But like, pack your camp chair, pack your water bottle, pack your sunscreen, your hat. We're going to do this, and we were extremely excited. And we, even when the results came out, we really felt that wow, we did something here, and it was an amazing feeling that my one little vote contributed to this change. So it was a really great feeling, honestly.
I really do like that. The times I voted, because I wasn't able to vote this time around, but the times I voted, I never felt like my vote did something because we lost. Either way, I mean, every single time there were more numbers, but at the end of the day, this likely would have been the first time I felt like my vote did something. So now I need to know, does anybody else feel the same? At any point in time when you voted, even up to this time, did you feel like, yes, we made it, we've done something for the country?
Good morning. My name is Lorato. I am representing an organization called CEDIA, Center for Democracy and Electoral Awareness. We're an organization whose core mandate is to facilitate voter education, right? So we've taken it upon ourselves to ensure that every Botswana in every corner of Botswana understands what elections are. You know, the importance of taking part in elections and what taking part in politics essentially mean, right? So on voting day, I guess for me personally, I was excited, like she was saying. It all comes from the feeling of just being patriotic, right? That I love my country. This is the Botswana that I want to see succeeding, And for me, I've always been guided by the one great philosopher. I don't know if we know Plato. Plato is a political philosopher, and interestingly enough, he says that just because you're not interested in politics doesn't mean that politics is not interested in you. So that is enough. That was enough for me, to prompt me to wake up in the morning to go and exercise my vote. And for me, I was even fortunate enough again to have been, in the observation mission. I didn't only vote; I took part in observing the past elections.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, right quick, because I really like the fact that you're involved in voter education. And I won't lie, I'm not entirely sure we all know. I personally had to go research out
Okay. In Botswana, we are currently using the first past the post, right, electoral system. That means it's the winner takes all kind of system. So that will mean that even if it's a margin of, just one vote at the polls, the winner takes all. In the past, we've had politicians, civil society, even individuals that have come out to, advocate for a different system, or at least a mixture, right? So that we can have, I know Me Butlokile Sirolezo was the phase of advocacy, in advocating for a different system. As we know, in the first past the post system, you are voting for most likely a political party, right? It's not very representational. Um, so if civil society and individuals have called that, have called for a different system that would allow us to showcase phases of individuals, rather, so that you then vote for an individual and not a political party. As we know in Botswana, currently with the UDC leading, is because UDC won most constituencies, right? When they came to the third shift, it's much they
our council seats. And I think that has always been a personal struggle for me because one of the first things I always ask is, what are your qualifications? What's your experience? And I'm very sad to say it's very difficult to find that information. I don't know where to look. I don't know who to ask. I've tried Facebook pages. I've tried the internet. Highly, highly degree there, that job there. But most of the time, you don't really know the people we're voting for. And now that brings me to my next question, guys. Did you know who you were voting for? What did you know about them? Or was it just the party manifesto that said, or that informed you of your choice?
All right.
For me, originally what prompted me was the party manifesto, but unfortunately, close to where I live, one of the parties, I guess, has their, I suppose maybe it's their head office. I'm not sure what the correct term would be, but I actively went there to go and inquire, and they were honestly very helpful with the information that they gave me. Very helpful, very open to any questions that I had, any concerns as well. So I think that's another thing that secured my vote for me. Yeah.
I can also chime in. For me, I didn't really know who I'd be voting for. So I can say I didn't make an informed decision because this was my first time voting. So I think I'm taking it upon myself to go back, look at what they've all said, take accountability if I didn't make the right choice with the information that I will collect going forward. But definitely, I'm starting the work now. In the next 4 years, is it 4 or 5? In the next 5 years, next voting cycle, I'll make sure that my vote will be informed, and I'll stand by my decision for sure. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, but let me just say, let the work start now if we're going to educate ourselves. Elections don't start when it's campaigning time, then voting time. It's a circle, right? So in this circle, you make sure that, like the period that we're in now, we're just closing in the activity that is voting, right? So we will now be going into the period where we're supposed to facilitate the education, right, to citizens. So this is the time that as a citizen, you take the responsibility to learn, to attend those meetings. If the IEC office is somewhere teaching, you attend. If CDIA has a stall somewhere in your village, that is the time for you to approach the stall so that you actually get that information. It's part of being patriotic and loving your country, right? And then when it comes to who was I voting for, it also goes back to you as an individual, you know, what you would like to see. Of course, me being a woman and advocating for inclusion of women, you know, in policy, I was looking for more women candidates, right? And I think for me, it was not just about more women. It was women that I trusted enough to know that when they get to parliament, they will speak on these, you know, women issues, right? They will be representational of what we need as women or where we are going as women in this country. So I was looking for those. And as we know the stats in our country, unfortunately, there was not a lot of those, right? So the next option is to then listen to your candidate who is there and select the best one that you feel like this one will be representational of women, you know. So for me, I think what influenced my vote was gender parity.
Yeah.
I'm big on gender parity. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. Anybody else?
May I add on to what she said?
Go ahead.
Yes, because I appreciate that point, because when we were watching the whoever we feel like they need to account to us, they made promises. Now we have to follow up. We need to hold them accountable. It doesn't end here. There's still another next year. There's still the second year, the third year while they're still serving us. We need to make sure we do a follow up. So let's get that education. Let's see what they've promised as well, and then see if they deliver on their promises. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is definitely very true, and this is something I've said a few times in the past few months. My former counselor can't stand me. Like, I really want to say absolutely hates me, because when I walk into the trophies, if he's there, he's gonna go the other way around. And I won't lie, this time I was likely to just vote for a party because it felt like family members arguing for a seat. Bafana Khotshwane. So it was difficult to choose a specific person and say, I'm going to go with this person based on the fact that your family member / person that shares your surname, I don't really agree with how he handled my constituency. He hung on to things being done that were already in the National Development Plan, and I really had a simple request. I didn't want a lot, just as a young person in the nation. Grade the road, not tar it, not put stones, grade. Just bring some sand and that big roundy thing, and then just, that's all we wanted. At least after every rain, because everybody in my neighborhood, except maybe 1 or 2 people, small cars, cute little sedans, cute little hatchbacks, You know, it's the odd person with a nice big SUV, so they can go 40, 60 kilometers on that road, no problem. Me and my cute little car, no, that's my suspension, that's my tires. And whenever I'd say this, I would sound entitled because, oh, you have a car. What about the people who are walking? So I hear you. The people who are walking have to make it through the rain and the mud to get to the combis. But at least it's replacing shoes, not 3,000 pula worth of tires or 5,000 pula worth of suspension. And no, it was not your decision for me to buy a car, but it really is your decision how my neighborhood survives. So if you could just grade the road, really that simple. We were lucky we got some other things through the National Development Plan, but it's tiny things like that that make me wonder, how are we engaging our councillors? Because before you go to the actual parliament and put in something or have somebody put in something, you are going to be asked, have you spoken to your councillor? Have you visited your land board? Have you visited these people and spoken to them? And yeah, guys, how often are we intentionally going to their offices and ticking off the list according to the manifesto or their personal promises when they visited you?
Yeah. Caterer. I mean, that's something like I think we most of us don't know. Where do we go at that lower level? Because I think if, for example, if it's a ministry, we normally know where the ministries are, but we don't know where the other offices are, where we have to go to them before we go to the big office. Eh,
No.
mhm.
I think these are some of the things that the government, or because I don't want to just put it on ourselves. Yes, we should go out and find out, but I was 29, 28 when I figured out where to go. And this was after asking multiple times and not getting answers. Eventually, I said, okay, you know what? The relevant Facebook pages are not going to help me. I'm just going to start asking the elders because the elders seem to know where to go. And if it wasn't for my dad and the other parents in the neighborhood, I really don't think I would have known that I'm supposed to go to. It's not a land board per se, but it's like behind the land board. This whole time I thought I was going, what? Oh, then no, I just take a walk, it's a 10-minute walk. I don't have to go very far to see my counselor. Unfortunately, sometimes he is directly at Parliament, but you know, I don't have to go very far. And I think it is very fair to ask the government to say, give us hours, give us times, because we know you're busy, we know you're doing stuff. Right? Is that something we would be willing to go talk about, even just with the youth? Can we band together and decide that no, we're gonna look for these people and we're gonna start asking the right questions?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like that. But please be respectful, guys.
Yes. Yeah.
Showing up at their houses at dinner time is not a good idea. You know, if it's a Saturday morning and they're with family, you know, to find the right moment. Because I think a lot of times us youth also forget
Yeah.
that go na le botho, go na le hlompho. There's a certain way we're supposed to do it. And I don't know if I'd include all of us, because, you know, some of us were raised in the 90s and we've come to understand certain things through our parents and our grandparents. But for example, I have a niece, very different, had very soft grandparents. Thanks, mom and dad, for being nicer. But it means generally she doesn't see a lot of the things that are supposed to be. Boy, akere. Now I was taught akere is not a word you use
Yeah.
with adults. The 16-year-old can do it. And it's fine at home, but there are places that will not accept that, certain offices that won't accept that. And it's not right because there's no space for boholo in a professional setting. You're my colleague, you are my constituent, you are my this. There's a specific term I use for you that is not moholo. I must still respect you, but there's a way that I must do it in such a way that I'm not alienating you, I'm not making anybody mad. But yeah, technically we can use akere, but we all know, guys, if we're honest with ourselves, when we go into the government offices and they can see you're younger, it gets a little bit difficult to navigate.
Yeah.
And the only way out is to be, I don't want to say underhanded because that's the wrong term, but beat them at their own game. Because at the end of the day, we all need information. We all need to make this work for us, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
best way is to make them your friend, even if you don't necessarily like how they handle themselves. Now, onto actual issues in the country. Our hospitals, our clinics, our schools. How do we feel about the state? Actually, has any one of us here been to government school? Education.
I have. Yeah, I have.
Okay. What was your experience of government school versus what you see kids going through now? Because when I was in high school, 2004 to 2009 or something, I understood that it was a great environment, given there were maybe kids that came from some less privileged homes that maybe came with some trauma and caused some trouble, but generally, teachers were on point, principals were involved, all the school books were available, the learning environment was a good environment. Fast forward to now, I'm in my 30s and I'm hearing that if you're lucky, you'll get a textbook, but most of the time you just get a WhatsApp message of notes, and then you have to like either copy all those notes down into your book so that you have a full textbook in your notebook, or ask your parents to print it for you. In some instances, there are no supplies. For example, I know at least the two junior schools in my neighborhood, there's no sports because there's no netballs, no soccer balls, no fields, no nothing. Is that your experience of being in a government school?
Interesting. But for me, I'll just put it out there that I feel like the love for my country started from primary, right? And that was at a government owned, or what we call a public school, right? I wasn't in the Model C school or anything like that. I feel like that is where the love for my country started. As much as I'm proud that I was taught what Botswana is, what the diamonds, taught about the diamonds that support us to go to school, the tourism that is just so beautiful, because that is taught at extension in government school. I do not know about private schooling and the curriculum, but I do know that we were taught in extension that Botswana is reliant on diamonds. Diamonds do this for us. We have the infrastructure because of diamonds. And it's just from there that you start to love, what diamonds do for our country. You start to have the recognition that our economy is growing because of these diamonds. You start to love the tourism, for me, it was just from the small pictures that will be shown to us. That is where the love for my country started. As for the shortage or the lack of resources, it once again goes back to who are you voting for? And what are they saying? Do they share the interests? Are they interested in seeing that situation changing? Right. So it goes back to who you vote into power, right? Because it starts from, just your local person that you vote for, them reporting to council, the situation in the primary school, council taking it all the way to parliament, laws changing, right? So that the situation can be, can be worked on, if in lack of a better word. It's just about who you're voting into power. I understand that there's been a lot of reports of shortage of books, even shortage of medicines in the hospitals. It still goes back to who are you voting in, what policies are there, who is making the policies. And then when it comes to just me being a woman, I feel like I was taught a lot of the gender norms and gender practices as they come traditionally, which I feel like has become sort of a disadvantage, not only to myself, but to all the other women in society, because we get stuck in the gender roles, get stuck in the gender norms, that we forget that society is multifaceted, like Memadins was saying, that society is ever changing. right? We then have to be accustomed with what is happening in the present so that we can attend to it. But if you're still stuck in the what you were taught, because those are the gender roles that we were taught even in public school, that a woman does this, mom does this, a child does this, girl does this, boy does that. That is how it was presented. If you get stuck in that, it sort of limits your understanding that at some point we'll have to navigate just a little, push the boundaries a little, so that even us as women, our voice is heard. Policies are changed. There's that inclusion, that is, policy specific, with the intention to cater to the ever changing and multifaceted issues of women.
I get that. I get that. That's fair. Do you wanna throw in? Okay.
Yeah, I think on the topic of gender roles, I'm posing this question to whoever will answer me, because this is what I'm asking myself. That our issues are not spoken enough. Is it because, number one, there are not enough females who stand for seats, like for member of parliament or councillor, because those are the people who normally relay the message to wherever it has to go, so that there's a policy change, right? Number one. If there is a woman who stands and says, I will speak for you, I want to represent you guys, it's another two-part question. If there's a woman who stands up and says, I want to represent women, A, are there not enough females to vote that woman in? B, if there are women who want to vote, will they vote for the men because they normally, because it's been like that, men have been representing, men have been the ones who are passing the laws. Does it mean that there's a mind shift change that we as women, because we have to look into ourselves first. Sorry, are we not voting the women who raised their hands? Is it because we feel like, no, another woman can't really do it? Like, what is it? If you could help me.
I mean, this one I can take looking at where I was voting. Well, at least I can be one of the people that take it. Across all the wards, I think there's like 4 or 5. There was maybe 2 women standing. And at first, I wondered if that was a member issue, because it doesn't seem that me as Moronga can show up to any political party's offices, or when they're voting in. I know recently they had their rallies where they were choosing their people. Moronga can't just walk in and put in a ballot for those internal votes they have. It seems to be entirely party dependent. It's us as the members, the people who think they can do it will stand for their areas, and then us as the members are the ones who select, and then those become the people the constituency can pick. But then at the same time, I then realized that the specific woman who's in my area, I've never heard anything from her. All the men have spoken. All the men have come and campaigned and sent people and have had somebody saying something, but never heard any one thing from the woman who was part of the people we were supposed to pick. And I said, well, first and foremost, I'm going to pick a party because, I feel like, based on the fact that you're essentially the same person. But at the same time, I have to pick the party that has the man, because at least I know what the man has promised. I have no idea what this woman is planning to do. I don't know if she's entirely following the manifesto. I'd love to have a conversation with her, but I have no idea how to find her. Mm-hmm. So that was me personally. And I'm sure in other places it was something different. I'm sure is it Gaborone North that had Mamuketi? I'm sure they had their own reasons not to pick her. Same with Mogoditsane West. They had Lillian Moremi and the BDP. They had their reasons not to pick her. I mean, given in almost every constituency, we wound up choosing UDC. But I did notice that there was a lot of women that were picked by different parties to stand for a specific constituency. And pretty much everywhere we chose the men. And I'm not sure if it's the same thing I discovered in my constituency. it could be something different. But yeah, that's what I found, that I didn't know her. I had no idea who she was. I had no idea what she could give me. So I was like, nope, it's not gonna happen.
Okay. Food for thought, eh? Or is it that a woman was standing, but there weren't enough women who registered to vote and actually voted as well?
That's
Because
another
that
thing.
could be another thing that I'm thinking that maybe a man, it's easier for a man to talk to another man if they're going to talk about issues that affect them.
Yeah.
But if a woman is talking to other men about women, about issues that affect women, it's not because it's not because they're hard headed, but they just won't get it. Like if I say our young school girls who are less advantaged, they need free sanitary pads. They won't get it.
True.
And if there are just 3 women, there are 3 women representing us co parliament, and then another 3 who were specially elected.
Yes.
That's 6.
Yes.
How many seats are there in total?
We have like a 1%.
More than 60, right? Let's just say more than 60. So 60 minus 6 is what? 54. So there are 54 men against 6 women.
Yes.
If we were to vote, all women were to vote on a policy that are affecting women, do you think they are going to win?
No.
Right?
I mean, I'm 35 now. At 35, I still, something as simple as cramps, I still can't explain. Like, no, you've taken it very, very far, speaking about the young girls who need the sanitary napkins. No, just the men in my family don't understand how crappy cramps are. I don't know how I'm supposed to explain anything else if something as natural as menstruation is not making sense. Like, they know it's painful, but it's always, no, you guys are always being so dramatic. Little young, it's too painful to stand. So it really is. Like, I don't know how to explain to you that my insides are trying to claw out, but that's exactly what's going on here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they won't get it as much as they have mothers, they have sisters, they have daughters even. They don't understand if we say a girl is missing 5 days of school because they are bleeding.
Yes.
They can't go to school in that when is that time of the month? They can't. So like ladies, we really need to make sure we show up. It's not, you don't really need to be the one who's a politician. Support that female. Make sure you relay the issues, because sometimes most of us here Mohabron, we don't understand what those girls are going through because we have that privilege of being able to purchase every month. They don't have it. They don't have that privilege. Because I heard a really disturbing story where there are young girls who are actually using mattresses, the material from mattresses, because it's more sustainable. The pad drives are good. We get that. That's good. Thank you, but it's not sustainable. A pad drive lasts, the pads that are donated last only 2 or 3 months, but there's 12 months
Yes.
in a year, right? So it's not sustainable. So when we talk about them being free, at least to those disadvantaged, let's start there. At least they just don't get it. Even with the issues, the escalating issues of gender-based violence, sexual assault. I don't know if that's the politically right term on this platform to say it that way, but they really don't get it when we say, "Batung,
Yeah.
Wawan." And with the numbers don't lie. If there are more numbers, if there are more cases that are reported by females and females being the victims, we need to address the majority. Those numbers need to come down before we talk about, but the other men. We get that, we get that, but we need to drop those numbers, to be quite honest. Because when we look at the perpetrators, it's men. It's men attacking women, it's attacking young girls, even young boys. I'll add them here. But I don't know how we can really address that issue. You get it? because I think maybe also maybe like female police officers can also, you know, help us with such topics on how, because it's easy for us as a civilian to just say no, do this, do this, do that, but they are limited by the law
That's true.
to handle a case in a certain way. For example, I've once heard there was a suggestion that if you're going to report a rape case, you can't be reporting with somebody who's certifying their documents.
Yes.
You get it?
Although it
There
does
needs to
often
be,
happen.
yes, there needs to be a special room where you go and you can be vulnerable and tell your story. Because sometimes just walking in there, there's an embarrassment to what happened to you, even though it's not your fault, but you can't relay your issue freely at the police station. That's why some people end up, you know, not reporting, or when they are there, they can't speak up at all. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you
What do
are.
you guys think?
You are. You are. Anybody?
I just kind of wanted to go back to what you were saying about the decision that you made in selecting, I think, was it your council
Yes, yes.
member, about how there was a woman but you didn't know what she was about, what she had to say about the community, what her contribution was going to be. And I also agree that I think that I as much as we do want to empower women, I can't pick you solely on the fact that you're a woman. You know, there needs to be some kind of merit, and not necessarily in terms of qualification, but what are your intentions for your community? What are your intentions for us as well? You know, there needs to be, you need to have that visibility as well. We need to know what you want to contribute. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to touch on with you.
Thank you. Thank you. No.
Maybe just to add on police officers and the need of being trained, I think it's something, an issue that's just not here in Botswana, it's everywhere, including in France. So I think it's not only the female police officers, as you say, it's a global issue. So men have to feel involved. And I think it's not only an issue of not understanding, sometimes is it not understanding or not caring so much. So in the law, you know, everyone is equal. No one should be heard based on their gender. You know, the law is very clear on those things. So they really need to enforce the law everywhere. And there needs to be things in place like police officers, not just female police officers, but how are you trained to welcome a victim, make sure they feel like this is a safe space, even though of course it's very stressful to go there and talk about such sensitive issues. But how do you make sure, okay, the victim, or presumed victim, is reassured enough? How do you make sure they can sit somewhere that's maybe apart from other people in the station, create some sort of intimacy, like a safe space within the station and so on. So I think it's not just only a question of women, even in politics, women working for women. It should be a global issue. Men also not only need to understand, but also care. And so I think it's also an issue we need to talk about, not just here in Botswana. Again, France, we have the same issues everywhere in the world. US, I guess it's going to be an issue as well.
Yeah, yeah. And probably the more people, the worse it gets. All right. Just to also backtrack a little to the issue of why are we not putting, like Katlego was asking, why are we not putting women in parliament? Is it that you know, women don't register to vote? Is it that women do register to vote, but they just don't vote the you know, the female candidate? I think it goes back to the issue of, like Memadins was saying in the podcast, what are political parties doing, right, for these women? What are they doing about the women that they are with in the political party? Are they doing enough to put these women out there, right? It goes back to issues of quotas. Are you voting for a political party that is advocating for gender quotas, right? Are you voting for a political party that is advocating for, a gender-sensitive parliament? Are you voting for a political party that, really has intention to really deal with women's issues and issues that affect women? One thing that I find interesting is that in Botswana, we've only had two women that have sat in parliament who were members of the opposition, right? We had the first one in 2013 in Francistown when Retsela Masisi passed. She came in. Then in 2014, elections came. She lost the election. The second woman that we had was Mayor Sami, may her soul rest in peace. She won elections in 2014. Then in 2016, she passed away. And since then, we've not had a woman from the opposition sitting in parliament. Now that BDP is opposition, we've not had any woman from the opposition. So my question is, with the numbers of women, because the IEC report does show that women do register for election. In fact, we were the most group that registered for election. And if you went out to the polls to observe, you'd see that women really came in large numbers. Right. So the question becomes, why are we not seeing women? And I think it's because there's a lot of issues there that we are not going in deeply into with intention. It's not just one issue. There's a lot of them. When you look at GBV, we're looking at GBV at a broader, with a broader lens. We need to really zoom into GBV and see exactly what is happening there. You understand? Why women are not participating in. It's not only women who stand to be representatives, even women voters, right? The ones who don't register to vote, where could they be? Right? What is happening to them in terms of GBV? Those are things that we need to look into. We need to look into issues of, like I was saying, quotas. And then again, from what Samantha was saying, that, I'm not going to vote for a woman just because she is a woman. It takes the conversation back to civil society. That we've seen that in the past, women that were voted into parliament weren't really performing to, at optimum. Right, a lot of people felt that they were giving it the bare minimum. Often quote on social media. There are videos often shared on social media where they were not saying exactly, the most, I'm looking for a nicer word, right? They were not showing that they were pro-women, or they were not even just in the general debate of policy, right? People felt that these women are really below par. Right. It takes it back to civil society, it takes it back to political parties. Are we taking the initiative to make sure that, as these women come into parliament, we're sensitizing them, we're teaching them the right etiquette, right, of how you're going to conduct yourself now as a politician, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, right? Is there somebody behind the scenes who is giving this type of education to women? Sometimes it's just telling them what is happening in society and the best way to phrase it, right? This is how you're going to talk about it in parliament, that sort of thing. It's not always that the person doesn't have the intellectual capacity. Sometimes it's just the presentation of it. So let's not hammer them too much and say, I'm not going to vote for you just because you're a woman, and then you go to parliament, you fail to represent, up to the standard that we often see in their male counterparts. We have to, when it comes to women issues, I'm of the opinion that we have to be really intentional. And I feel like we need to stop when talking about women in politics or just women in general, the conversation needs to shift from it being women versus men. It's not women versus men. We need men. Men are allies, right, in this struggle. It's not what women want versus what men want. It's actually women versus policy, women versus tax, for example, women versus climate change, women versus motherhood, right? It's never women versus men. I think that is where we get it wrong. If we can go to the deep roots of it and start the conversation there and get rid of the conflict, the imaginary conflict that we think is there between men and women, then we can actually get somewhere, because men can then be appreciative of the fact that, we are in the struggle together.
Emma. I really appreciate that. You've given me a chance to segue into something, but I'm going to let. Yeah. Thank you.
I really love how you had ended that, it's not that women need to be in total control. It's that women and men need to work together hand in hand to do this. Yeah.
Okay. So, is it safe to assume we're all over 25? Okay, so I'm gonna try start very, very lightly, very, very simply. Katleho started us off nicely, discussing the fact that it's not necessarily easy to find pads for some people. Now, my first question is, every month, what does the budget look like when you have to go buy your sanitary napkins compared to when it was your parents buying it for you? Even with the discount on the VAT. I know we were given a discount last year. Okay, it looks like you didn't notice.
How does our budget look like every month?
I'm pretty sure I'm looking at 100 pula per month at least, and that's just for the pads. I'm not including my dolls and pond stands and things.
Yes,
like that.
there's a lot that goes into it. First of all, it's the material that has to capture the blood, right?
Yeah.
It's just that, and then that variations.
Mhm.
We have the pair, we have tampons, right? That's one thing, right? And then another thing is the cramps. You probably need to buy pills that will help you. Ibuprofen.
Yeah,
And then there's some
the
people who
easiest
need a one stronger than that. On top of that, there's some people who don't want to take pills. They'll have to buy what? Heat patches.
yes.
Apart from the heat patches, yeah, hush, our cat is is having a fun time there.
Sorry, guys. Like he's having the snacks.
Yeah.
Don't judge us.
And then after the pills that we need, right, to just to help us be okay, then comes in the what do you call it, the cravings. The cravings that we cannot ignore. It's something we cannot ignore.
That's true.
So I'm already looking at about 500 there.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes we don't factor in the chicken nickel we need to buy, the slab of chocolates. Yes, we don't, right? So I'm looking at about 400-500 already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Technically speaking, these are all things that everything we've spoken about. Definitely, our parliament has some kind of control, because last year they officially decided that schoolgirls should get free pads. And then our former Minister of Finance also made it a point to entirely remove the VAT, make it zero. But again, that really hasn't changed the budget much. And with a minimum wage of what, 1.5, 2,000? Does that mean there are women out there with only 1.5 for rent and groceries and transport and? Okay,
Yeah, I think those discussions are very interesting because you can see the cost, like material cost of being a woman leading, but also like health cost, because there have been some debate about what's made, like to make those pads, those napkins, like I don't know how you call them. There's a lot of chemicals there.
yeah.
And also those medicines, they're not good to take every month. Ibuprofen and so on, it's quite bad for your heart and so on. So there's like material costs, health costs, and that's why policies, again, not just in Botswana, those medicines are used everywhere, and those napkins as well. That's why policies have to be made so that there's this in mind, and that they can think about, okay, this has an impact on women specifically, on women's health, on women's pockets. So I think it's very interesting to have these discussions, to bring them to those parliaments and those politicians, even locally, because sometimes it's not you don't really have those open discussions like that. We're all women here. It's also something interesting to notice. We're all women here.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's good that we have those discussions here.
Thank you. I think also part of the reason I wanted to bring this up is because of the 6 women in parliament, and hey, how do I say this nicely? Not all of them are in the same situation we're in. Some of them have had their kids, they've jumped that painful menopause hurdle. But again, they've been successful throughout their lives, so they don't necessarily know the pain of, and I'm going to try, and I know this sounds trivial, but the pain of craving a Kit Kat. It sounds very, very trivial, but until you have that experience where it's that painful, there was a point in time where all I could eat was tomatoes. You could not give me anything other than a raw tomato. I will instantly puke. So for a week, 2-3 kgs of tomatoes belong to Moronga. We don't know if she'll live, but that's all she'll eat. And that's why I chose Kit Kat, because to a lot of people, it seemed trivial that all I'll eat is tomatoes. It seemed crazy that, what, you have yogurt and you puke? Yeah, my body's weird that way. Menstruation is not nice. But now here I am having experienced menstruation, and I wonder about pregnant women who get crazy symptoms. I'm afraid to be pregnant because I've heard horror stories. And not just birth, no, just on the way to birth, on the way to giving birth, before we get to 3 months of Botsetse. And now I guess my next question would be, in this country where contraceptives are not easy to get, essentially your only option is a condom. How does that work out for you? Because we have a lot of single mothers out here. Abortion is not an option. You wake up one morning, whether it was you and baby or you and Samangmang from the club, a lot of us have had that experience or seen somebody who had that experience, especially in university. Woke up in the morning, found out I'm pregnant. I can't get morning after pills. Maybe the condom burst. I can't do that unless I've been raped. Generally, if I trust my partner, it's not really an option to get contraceptives unless I ask the right doctors in the right places with the right prescription. But again, if I don't have 300 pula for a private hospital and I have to go on a specific day to the clinic at a specific time of the month, if I'm not there on that day at that time, I wait till next month. So how does it work for you, making sure that you don't end up a single mother in a country that is not necessarily going to support even a genuine mistake? Too far? Should I dial it back?
Ish.
I am going to attempt, right? Just an attempt. I think first things first. Let us not say so that you don't end up a single mother. It will then be somehow offensive to single moms who I feel like are doing a really, really good job. You understand? A lot of us in society, I'm saying us speaking for women, have been raised by very powerful single moms who did it. Even if their mom wasn't single, we know, like you were saying, us from the 90s, mom will be there to raise you up. Dad will be somewhere working in the mines. So she somehow situationally become, a single mom. Right. But when it comes to poor access to contraception or the lack of police just the inability to get an abortion, right? I feel like it takes us all the way back to policy. Like I've been saying, it takes us all the way back to the laws that are enacted, right? What are these laws? Who do they favor? Do they speak for us as women? Is this what we want? If it was just if it was welcome, let me just I'm gonna say welcome, right? If it was welcome, would women not draw different policies? right? Would they not come up with different policies? Maybe an abortion policy that allows women to get abortion, right? Would women not have a policy that allows them to get, contraception immediately after you have your first child? You can choose to prevent birth going further, right? So I feel like it goes all the way back to policy again, to say that the people that are making these policies, the people that are causing, this lack of contraception, the people that are causing this lack of access to contraception and birth control in general, are the people that we're putting in power. That is why we are now calling for women to be voted into parliament, because we are of the view that, with the more women who've had first-hand experience of how cramps are, who've had first-hand experience with menstruation, who've had first-hand experience with childbirth, they will take that experience and do a better job in parliament. And once again, I think one of us asked the question here that somebody said, even if we do vote these women into parliament, the risk is when they get there, they sort of forget the struggle of where we're coming from. And for me personally, I'm quite happy with the current member Helena who's in the UDC, but from the AP. She's the AP Women's President, I think, because I've heard her voice, right? I've heard her speak out about women issues. I've heard her really stand up for women and want to see the inclusion of women in decision making, right? So that gives me a little bit of comfort to say that with everybody that's voted in parliament, everybody that was specially elected to come into parliament for various reasons that I think we're about to find out as soon as cabinet is announced, at least we have this woman, it might be just one woman in Helena, but that voice will be there. At least this time around, the voice of somebody that we've had speak before she was in parliament. We've had her speak about women. We've had her speak about the inclusion of women in policy. At least she will be there, right?
Okay. Anybody else wants to add something? Okay, thank you.
It's on the whole topic of contraceptives not being available for people to use. There's a program called Dreams. Is it
Get dreams.
Yeah, Kotebelopele. They help young girls find contraceptives who are choosing to be sexually active, right? So as your varsity kids and all that, it's not just the condom. Yes. They do the patches, the everything, like they put you on and like so you figure out what works for you and stuff. I feel like that's a great initiative.
No, because we need more of that around.
We need more of that.
Yeah, it's insane. I think a lot of us are a lot more privileged than we realize, and that's why I had very specific questions about menstruation and contraceptives, and even just being a single parent. The truth is, any man can just go. Oftentimes I'll always ask my friends, what would you do if he died? And that's worst case scenario. But again, I have seen 2 parent homes, but only 1 active parent in the home. I have seen a single parent home, no active parent in the home. And unfortunately, these kids, they're going to grow up tomorrow and become adults. And I'm not saying it's too late then, but like at 11, your brain has officially decided how it works out some things. It has created its pathways and it's going to stick to those pathways until the day you die. And if you try to go back on that, it's difficult. It's sort of like an addiction thing. You have to train yourself physically to go the other way. And I do find myself concerned that if half of the country, at least 51.3%, is women, that is at least 1.3 million people that tomorrow may end up in a difficult situation purely because I don't have the money for pads. It becomes very easy to go find Rabo somewhere
don't care where he comes from, maybe he's married or whatever, and that is how you get your money for pads. Alternatively, I don't have contraceptives. It's very easy to engage in risky sexual behavior or find yourself forced into such a situation. And I'd really like those of us who are privileged enough to not have to worry about these things to try and speak on behalf of the ones who aren't as privileged. Because I don't think any one of us here has to really think about it that difficultly. Like, I'm sure my period's coming in 3 weeks, but I'm not currently concerned whether or not I have pads. I'm sure I can find them. But there's another woman somewhere who's definitely concerned. There's a married woman somewhere who's afraid to have sex with her husband because she doesn't want to be pregnant for the 100th time. Okay, not 100th, but she doesn't want to have another child because this man is insisting that, no, you can't take contraceptives, you can't use a condom, you can't. Meanwhile, she's the only person who's going to be there 24/7 to care for the kid, you know? So I don't, because Mr. Producer is going to be mad at me just now. Ladies out there and men out there as well. Actually, everybody out there. Can we please just think about each other just for a second? I'm sure we all have our own problems. I'm sure we all have our own issues. I wake up in the morning and I say my prayers and then I list down everything that's wrong with my life. And then I have to go back and say, despite this, there are certain things I'm blessed to have. And I'm sure there are plenty of people who are waking up and don't have a single thing other than I'm breathing that they can be thankful for. So can we just think about each other just a little bit as parliamentarians? Please consider your housekeepers, your gardeners, your drivers, because those are people who are getting minimum wage. You earn 10 times at least what they get, and that's maybe like a bonus for you. So I think you need to think about that. And then me also on the street, I need to consider that when I drive home past a lady, I'm passing a whole community of people that might not even have Netflix. And I'm lucky enough to have that. And there's something I can do to support them, whether it's talking to my counselor or talking to my parliamentarian. There's something I can do. There's something every single one of us can do. And if we're not going to be able to force the parliamentarians to do it right this instant, we can do it for each other until we get the right people sitting in the right seats. I can't get the people online to agree, but like, can we agree?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know if Katlaho, you'd like to add something else before I tell the people bye.
No, I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Botswana world, have a lovely weekend. This side of my country, it's overcast, so I'm going to go find a braai stand and my family, and we are going to continue this discussion, and I hope you guys don't mind doing the same thing this weekend. We will see you in 2 weeks on Sechaba. Are you listening?